I quickly found myself questioning if my topic was worthy of a talk like this. I'm standing here next to some of the smartest kids that this school has ever seen, but yet here I am talking about my troubling history of drug abuse. My good friend Braden O made it very clear to me that I have the opportunity to inspire, if not everyone in this room, then maybe just one person. And that simply is why I'm here. To be an inspiration to those who may be or may have been in my position, and to help prevent anybody from ever going through what I went through 4 years ago. Now, writing this wasn't easy for me because of all the rough memories it brings back. And there's not many words that can describe the terrible place I was in, but to say the least, it was hell. But why? Why did I put myself through this so willingly? I was, am, and always will be an addict. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean I'll be using drugs for the rest of my life. Hopefully, I'll never use again. But what that does mean, however, is that I need to know my boundaries of what I can and can't do, where I can and can't go, who I can and can't be around, and what's going to send me off the deep end. But before I get into that, let's take a step back 5 years to talk about the reason why I felt I needed to turn to this life in the first place. Now, 5 years ago, I didn't really know who I was, what I wanted, or where I was going. I was actually struggling to make it through the day in one piece. See, I was bullied a lot in elementary school and junior high for not being normal. I was overweight, I had ADHD, I was different, and I was just a weird kid. I was teased day in and day out, and although I still go to school with almost every single one of those kids that made me feel like I couldn't ever be anything in life, and that I wasn't anything in general, I guarantee none of them realized that they were the ones that made me feel that way about myself. There were nights I remember where I'd just come home, I'd close my door, I'd bury my face in my pillow, and I'd just cry. I'd just cry. But then after I'd get up, I'd wipe my tears, I'd wash my face, and act like nothing was wrong, like nothing ever happened. And this was so hard for me, all this pent-up sadness and anger of never being enough. Now, there's so many different ways that I could have handled these feelings. So many different ways I could have made myself feel better, like going to talk to my parents or a teacher, a counselor, maybe even a coach. But instead of doing that and doing those things that could have helped me, I looked to those around me for acceptance, because I felt that with their acceptance, I was all right. And without their acceptance, I felt like a loser. I knew I didn't want to be me anymore. And so, what I did was I started blocking everyone out, acting like nobody else exists. Like I was the only person in the world and nothing could get to me. But all that did was bury me deeper and darker into a hole of depression and anxiety. And all that did was give me a facade that others portrayed as fake, rude, negative. And I was really becoming a mean person. I was honestly becoming a bully myself, simply because I didn't want to be picked on anymore. But soon after all of that behavior of negativity that would only get me in trouble, I still felt like either way my life sucked. Being bullied or bullying, I hated who I was. All I wanted so badly was to feel like I belonged somewhere. And so I was starting to do anything it took to get that. Now, unfortunately for me, that included drugs. When a friend of mine offered me marijuana in 6th grade that he stole from his dad's stash, I didn't hesitate. I didn't think twice of what could happen if I said yes. I wanted to escape my reality so badly, and that's exactly what it did. I didn't think that smoking just that once would set something off to where 3 years later I'd be introduced to harder things like cocaine or heroin or other drugs that I would abuse on a weekly basis. Nowadays, when kids think of drugs and alcohol, they think of their favorite music lyrics, celebrities, partying, social status, and acceptance. It's cool, right? They don't really think about the reality that abusing drugs can lead to. They don't think about how physically their bodies can become so dependent on these substances to where the next time that they don't know if they're going to be able to get that high or they don't know if they're going to be able to use, that'll pull a trigger that'll set off violent tantrums and other aggressive behaviors because their body craves it so badly. Never did I think about the times where I'd keep my mom up worried sick because she didn't know where I was or she knew I wasn't where I said I was. I've started to become one of the biggest liars I knew. Always trying to hide from something, always trying to cover myself up. And the thing that I thought that was suppressing my problems and letting me run away from my fears was starting to eat me up. It wasn't just smoking here and there. It started to become a necessity. It started to become something that I needed to do in order to go throughout my day feeling normal. There were nights I remember sleeping on a horse trail because my friends didn't want me at their house. And I still needed to use. And at just 14, I didn't know what to do anymore. But I knew that I didn't want to live anymore. I wanted to kill myself. I ran away from home. I didn't want to see my family. I lost my friends. I was always in trouble. My grades sucked. And I felt worthless. And even though I knew it was this disease of addiction and these drugs that was making me feel this way, I physically did not know how to stop. I didn't know how to say no anymore because my body physically craved it. It was beyond me at this point. I didn't realize how selfish I was being, though, because that's what these drugs do. They don't let you see what's happening to you as a person. I didn't think about how I was tearing my family apart. I didn't think about how not only was I setting myself up, but also my parents for an early funeral with how much lying and deceitfulness I was bringing into their lives. The one thing I did know is that I couldn't live like this anymore. I knew that either way, with what I was doing, I would either end up on the streets, in a rehab, in jail, or dead. But then the best thing that could have ever happened to me happened. I got caught. I got caught and sent to intensive rehab to where I've been going to meetings and counseling every day for the past 6 months. Now, me saying that shouldn't only spark some fear into the younger ones in the crowd, but that should also be something that nobody would ever want to experience, especially a teenager. Instead of going to practice or hanging out with my friends, I was going to rehab after school. But it was what I needed in order to get better and to feel better about myself and to go through my days feeling like I belonged in the world. Now, that could have been it for me. I could have ended my talk right there by saying I'm 6 months clean and sober, smiled and said thank you for letting me share, and walked off stage. But I'm here to do more than that. I'm here to do more than just tell you my story or give you my testimonial on how detrimental drug abuse can be in a young teen's life, because I guarantee you everyone could have expected that it was pretty bad. Drugs are bad. We all know it. We've been taught it from a very young age. But I'm here to do a little bit more. I'm here to help prevent anyone and everyone from going through what I went through. So parents, If you're suspicious that your kids are doing anything, I know they're about to hate me for saying this, but go through their stuff. They still live in your house under your rules, and you can do as you please. But if you do, however, find something, the worst thing you as a parent could do is yell and scream and shout and make a huge fuss about it, because that does nothing except add to the anger and fuel the fire. This is why I was so lucky. I had parents who cared enough for me to where I could go to them and say, hey, Mom, Dad, I have a problem. And I knew that they would be able to help me and know what's best for me. Because kids, as cliche as it may sound, and I'm sorry if you don't believe me, and I know you might not believe it at times, but it doesn't matter your situation, your parents will always love you. But parents, you also need to be there for your kids. You need to say, it's okay every now and then if they're having a rough time. You need to make it known that you're there for them. Because as Johan Hari once said, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. Now what this means is we need to care and support each other to get through this. Now for the kids. You're perfect. You are fine just the way you are. And when there comes a time in your life, because in this society, it's not if there comes a time, it's just a matter of when. And it sucks to say, and I'm sorry that that's the truth, but every one of you kids will be introduced to drugs one way or another in your life. But I challenge every one of you to have the courage to know that you don't need that in your life. To know that it's not worth it to throw your life away for those things. Now, for those of you getting bullied or any of those types of issues, have the courage to stand up, to face your fears, to say, no, I'm better than that. I'm worth it. I didn't have any respect for myself, and that's where my problems stem from. We all need to face our problems head on, because if you don't do that, that's the only way that you can solve your problems in life, is facing them head on. I tried running away from my problems, and look at where it got me. Now I can continue on my talk by listing a variety of inspirational cliches that you may forget once I leave this stage. Or I can tell you that there's no such thing as normal or typical or average. So stop wasting your time trying to be somebody that you're not, because it's not possible. We all need to be ourselves, and we all need to respect ourselves. And I'm going to leave you guys with a choice. You can either conform to someone else's ideal of happiness, or you can find your own. And you can help me shift the world by believing and having the courage that being yourself is the better way to go. I dare everyone in this room to have the courage to be yourself. Thank you.